One of the things that you absolutely have to have is a very good understanding of the condition of both the transmission and distribution system. That's going to require intelligent sensors. Intelligent sensors require communications to bring the data back, to analyze the data and understand in near real time the state of the system to make sure that the generation is balanced with the load in, again, near real time. So the visualization of the system, the power delivery system, is one of the areas of technology that we're really focused on. The other one that's more longer term that we're focused on is really what we call our intelligent universal transformer. It's a solid state transformer. So right now, the transformers that are outside of our customers' facilities is this iron core oil filled transformer. But think about what it would be like if we had a solid state transformer. And let me just talk just a minute about some of those benefits. And we are in process in our Knoxville facility. We have developed a prototype that we're testing. And what the solid state transformer will do, will take distribution voltage using solid state power electronics, and the output of this can be DC, it could be of various frequencies of AC, but it can also provide two-way flow of electricity. So now you can easily incorporate distributed renewable energy back into the system. It can also contain power conditioning technologies and energy storage. So this is some of the technologies that we're developing at EPRI that will help to enable and facilitate this interaction between the consumer and the system.
I think it's clear that we need new skills in utilities. We need marketing skills like we've never had before. Again, we were talking before the meeting. If you talk to PepsiCo or some of the drug companies or different people out there who are world-class marketers, they know everything about their customers and what drives them. And basically, utilities know that they pay their bill and what their outage record has been. So there's a huge gap there. We also need people who are much more up to speed. And again, I go back to the younger, more innovative folks that we have going to EPRI. They're much more up to speed with computers, automation, electronics. So there's a real void to be filled, and I think it'd be very difficult for the average utility to just fill all of that at one time. And therein lies the value of a project like we have in Kansas City, which we call our Smart Grid demonstration project, and it has some unique twists to it. If you think about your typical metropolitan area, the temptation is to put a smart grid where people who are more educated and who are more likely to maybe interact with the technology reside. But the real opportunity for value creation is actually in the urban core of our cities. It's a challenge, but there's also great potential to help people save dollars and also to provide employment.
I can't help but think back to this morning when Nick was talking and about what is the problem? What is the problem we're trying to solve here? And so I've kind of put it into four categories here. What do we want customers to do? How are we trying to get them to do it? What will work? And what are the alternatives? So with that in mind, I like to take things in a somewhat simplistic fashion. And maybe this might be somewhat debatable, but I think number one on the list is we want the customers to pay for smart grid. Eventually, the investments that need to be made, we've heard some of it here today, is there's going to be a relatively large price tag for this technology and for the, the changes that's got to be made with that. And you look at various estimates, some of it is in the hundreds of billions of dollars. So somewhere, it's got to come back, that's got to be paid for. I think secondly what are we asking them to do? And it is to overall, I believe, and hopefully we can have some discussion about this here, is to use or reduce overall energy consumption and peak consumption. Now, I think, those are kind of the basic tenets here of what where smart grid has got to address and what many issues we've got to address with this.
And so I love today's topic because from my perspective, if we don't get the customer engagement, kind of to Gary's point, we're going to lose the political and PUC support that we need to fund these projects. We're going to lose the customer's interest to create any pull for these projects. We'll lose the ability to build competing or complementary or new business models. And finally, we won't go through the transformation that everybody all morning long was saying that we had to do. The way that we as an industry tend to approach these problems in very siloed conversations will not lead us to the best answer and will not revolutionize the approach we take. I think if you talk to most people in the industry, whether they're from the vendor community, from the utility community, from the public utility commissions and how they fund projects, we tend to say we want to talk about DR. Now let's not talk about DR anymore and let's go over here and talk about EVs. And then somewhere separately in the building we'll be talking about storage. And I think we have to step back and think about how the whole thing works together as a system. So my proposal is that we stop thinking about all of the things that we get mentioned here: demand response, energy efficiency, distribution automation, distributed generation, web portals, building automation, EV charging, all the list of things we do here, and kind of change the paradigm to what I would propose we should call an integrated demand-side management view of how we're going to engage with the consumer. If we get to this IDSM paradigm, it will allow us as an industry to work collaboratively within our organizations to better define a more sustainable and cost-effective roadmap on how we're going to engage with our customers. And moreover, I think taking this broader view, which might seem more complicated and might seem like it would take longer, actually won't, because we'll capture more benefits and we'll have a better chance at making the business case in a way that I would propose could allow us to go to consumers and say, you don't have to pay anything. And I'm pretty sure that that would sell even to the president of the commission in the second largest state in the union.
Consumer efforts to stop AMI deployments, emotional concerns regarding health effects of RF emissions, questions of accuracy on consumption. These are the scorecard measures. We have quite a ways to go. We heard an earlier speaker today state that the value of smart grid was shifting downstream to the consumer. I believe that. However, clearly, while that may be true in 2020, it's been my experience, especially in the last 18 months, that the focus of business case drivers behind the AMI deployments is beginning to shift to the utility side of the meter. Perhaps that's our comfort zone. But the convergence of AMI and distribution automation, along with some of the compelling operational benefits, have clearly provided a more compelling and quantifiable business case to our utility customers. However, we've also heard a number of speakers comment on the enormous public policy challenge and technological challenges that we face as an industry. Those challenges, along with the significant capital investments in generation, transmission, and now smart grid, the challenge to be able to maintain a workable relationship with the regulators. Gary mentioned somebody has to pay for these investments, and frankly, we need to have a grown-up conversation with our customers.
We're making some progress, I think, on a couple of points that Leroy brought up at this conference a few years ago. We are making some progress in terms of definition of energy policy. I think the next big challenge for us there is to come up with a clean energy standard and begin to manage and administer that clean energy standard, both in terms of the inclusion of demand response and load reduction as an opportunity to achieve that standard, as well as the interaction between the federal government and the state governments in terms of the implementation of those standards. We're transforming a culture and a society, and that's what this customer engagement is all about, is how do we move beyond just transforming our industry, but how do we do that at a societal level? And I think that's particularly challenging with where we are today, and how do we, as the people who are the stewards of energy, or the people who are challenged with making sure that we have the energy that we need to propel ourselves into the future, do that in an environment where healthcare and economics are tough to keep people focused on. And so I think that we have a real big challenge and a real big responsibility in making sure that we move this forward in those times, in those difficult times. And I like to quote back to Jim Rogers and what it's going to take here, and this is cathedral thinking. This is marathon thinking. This is generational thinking. This is something that's not going to be achieved early. It's not going to be achieved easily. I think it's important for us to remember that were it not for the economic crisis, were it not for us being where we are in terms of the economy today, we would be in one boatload full of trouble. We had rolling brownouts in California. We had between 4 and 7 states who were moving towards rolling brownouts and rolling blackouts with the lack of supply that we had we not ended up in an economic crisis. We have a magic moment. We've been talking about a magic moment here, and I would be thoroughly disappointed if we come out the other side of this economic crisis and we don't have a plan and we don't take the bold step forward that we need to do in order to make sure that this country is competitive on a global scale, and that we are in a position to make sure that we can vie for the energy resources that are happening across the world tomorrow.